Thanks for being here. Welcome to Syracuse University's DC campus, to the Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship, and also to the homes of the Newhouse and Maxwell in DC programs. My name is Margaret Tolliff. I'm the director of the Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship. And what we do, we are a research institute that also does teaching and partnerships and public events like tonight. And we study the media ecosystem and how it impacts our system of democratic governance and how that impacts civic engagement. And so we are really delighted to be able to host Merrill and this esteemed panel tonight because here at IDJC, we do have a lot of focus on local news. Our research director, Joanna Dunaway, in the back, who I hope we'll get a chance to say hi to later, and another of our research professors, Josh Dar, up in Syracuse, have a real focus on studying local news, whether it's ownership or whether it is news deserts or whether it's polarization and how local news can help depolarize communities. And so when Merrill came into our lives, we were delighted to invite him as a fellow for the semester. Merrill Brown, who I think many of you know, some of you will get to know him over the course of the next hour, truly not just an entrepreneur, but a pioneer in the news business over the last many decades. Yes, he has been at institutions like the Washington Post, but also was the founding editor of MSNBC.com, co-founder of the Online News Association, and many other really important developments over the years. And so Merrill's project, as you will hear, what he's been focusing on is really trying to understand evolving business models in the news business and local news, and what is sustainable, and experiments that are working, what's working, and who's behind it. So we are really excited to host this conversation. We hope you'll stay in touch with us, sign up for our newsletters and events, and we hope you'll get to know Merrill and figure out how you can be part of his work going forward. And without further ado, can I turn this over to you, Merrill? Thank you.
Good evening, audience here. Hopefully, audience around the world streaming. We have many people who are hopefully watching this who are speaking this streaming. Hopefully, you're doing so, and that it's working. Thank you, Margaret, and thank you to our IDJC Newhouse and Maxwell colleagues who helped make this gathering happen. Thanks to all of you for joining us here in person. As Margaret said, I'm a visiting fellow here, and I'm studying the news and information business, new models, and today, through that lens and through the challenges facing local news, we're going to take a look at what's going on right here in DC. DC is the scene of extraordinary achievements in creating new news organizations, addressing the weakening and in some cases collapse of older print or broadcast-based news outlets. Witness here in Washington, Politico, Axios, Punchbowl, Puck, States Newsroom, Bulwark, The Dispatch, and now even more in the local news ecosystem, filling voids left by legacy print and digital publications here in the city and in the suburbs. This is a void not just here, but in many communities that entrepreneurs are filling, where the newspaper is gone, weakened, or stripped by rapacious investors. But we're not here necessarily to just focus on what's collapsed, why local metropolitan newspapers weren't better prepared for change, why they didn't themselves develop Craigslist or other tools, why they didn't rethink their expensive commitments to print, and why they didn't serve their communities better. But for all the challenges faced by the industry, as we see in this community and in communities across the country, and as we observed in television, radio, and in text, change is difficult and progress is hard. But here in Washington, it's happening. National media matters get a lot of attention here, but we're hoping here at the center, we're hoping with dialogues like this one that the news industry faces, local will get the attention that a diverse metropolitan area of 6.5 million people deserve. We'll get a briefing on where things stand in DC through the prism of this very unique region of the country tonight. There's a blossoming news ecosystem here and around the country. It's in Mississippi at Mississippi Today. It's at the Vermont Digger. It's at the Texas Tribune. It's at Cal Matters, the Daily Memphian. It's at 30 public media local newsrooms that do important work in their communities. The Rebuild Local National News Coalition has over 3,000 participating local news sites. And all this is blossoming in various ways in Washington and in the region as well. There's for-profit, there's not-for-profit, there's cooperatives, there are memberships, there are paywalls, there's foundation support, there are donors, there are franchisees, there are super rich backers in some of these organizations, and there are donors, and there are average citizens participating in funding campaigns. On April 9th, by the way, it's Local News Day in the country, a day of action to celebrate and strengthen local news. It's modeled after Giving Tuesday, which some of you may know of. And if you'd like to find more out about that day, April 9th, you can do so at localnewsday.org. It's a large national program you'll probably be reading about. And we'll get a taste of all that tonight. So on to our panelists, who have a lot to say about all this. On the end of the panel is Scott Brodbeck, a guy I've known for a very long time. He's the founder and CEO of Local News Now, a for-profit that publishes Arlington Now, as well as more recently Alexandria Now, FFX, Fairfax Now, and he's just quietly slithered, as I told him the other day, into DC and has created something called WSH, Washington Now, built largely on very sophisticated curation. He founded the organization in 2010. It's now called Local News Now, although it was originally called Arlington. He now serves 2.4 million readers and reports 85 million annual page views. He's in partnership with Moco Show in Montgomery County, Popville in DC, and Potomac Local in Northern Virginia. They have been the #1 source of news in Arlington County now for many years. Welcome, Scott. Scott's left is Audrey Cooper, who became the editor of the Baltimore Banner in October. Audrey's had a storied career in local journalism. She was named the editor-in-chief of the San Francisco Chronicle in 2015. She was the paper's first woman editor-in-chief and the youngest to run a newsroom of that size in newspaper history. She left there in 2020 to run the news operation at WNYC Radio, and she's now on to, as I said, the Banner out of Baltimore and increasingly the Washington suburbs. Launched in 2022 with $50 million from hotel magnate Stuart Bainham. The Banner is thought to be the largest single news startup yet undertaken. It employs over 140 people and has 80,000 subscribers in the region. Currently, you can get it for $1 for 6 months. So there's no you cannot get the Banner. It renews after that at $20 a month, or you can step up and spend $60 for the full year. That's an interesting case study in different ways to approach the financing model. They're giving it to people for $1 for 6 months. The Banner's successes include a 2025 Pulitzer Prize for a multi-year investigation of Baltimore's opioid crisis. Audrey, welcome. Audrey's left is Marcus Marin, who runs El Tiempo Latino and has provided local Spanish language news since 1991. 14 times its print publication has been named the best Hispanic weekly in the United States. They serve Washingtonians here in the region. They have a separate publication in Boston and a national one as well, in an area with about 1 million Hispanics, i.e. the Washington area. There are 1 million people of Hispanic heritage in the Washington area. That's about 1/6 of the population. They have a readership of 120,000, 450,000 social media followers, and he works to build what they call, quote, the most trusted, engaging, and culturally attuned media platform for Latinos in the U.S. They are very much a print company still, even though they're aggressive at digital. They have 60,000 newsletter subscribers. They have 400,000 social media followers, as I mentioned, and they're a force here in the community and around the country, with a major population group that's incredibly relevant and in the news all the time. Welcome, Marcus. Who is left is Christina Sturdivant Sani, who is the executive editor of the 51st, which developed here in Washington out of the demise of DCist and is now a worker-led, nonprofit, employee-controlled publication. Christina is from DC and passionate about the community. She's written for the Post, she's written for the Washingtonian, she was a columnist at the City Paper, and in these and other publications, she's written about urban affairs, education, entertainment, and transportation. And they started at the 51st with a crowdfunding campaign 2 years ago, and launched an even more aggressive campaign, which she'll tell you about when it became clear several months ago that there was a growing gap in Washington, D.C. coverage. Among their campaign slogans, Bezos fires, we hire. They're in a fundraising mode now, and they have a donor who's matching some of those gifts, and she'll tell you about some of that as well. With that in mind, I'd like to get the panel in motion by starting with Scott. And Scott, tell us the state of things in Arlington now.
State of things in Arlington is it's good, but you know, local news remains challenging. Just so you know, Merrill, how much time should I give to this answer? Because I could give you a very long answer.
We're terse over lunch, and I'm sure you'll do it now.
You know, local news is a very challenging space at the moment. I have two of my employees are here, Dan and Katie. I don't have, you know, I think we have something pretty good going in Northern Virginia. You know, our 3 owned and operated sites, our 3 partner sites. But you know, you look at even here, and we have a very large audience, much larger audience for, you know, a set of local news sites than you typically find for kind of the online. Even with this big audience, 16-year-old company, you know, a really solid editorial team and business team, it's challenging. Our revenue was flat last year from a year prior. And it feels, you know, like we've been running faster on the treadmill just to stay in place. You know, I think that we like about a year ago acquired the weekly newspaper that was serving Arlington, Fairfax County, and brought over the editor-in-chief and the sports guy who works with us part-time. And you know, I think the state of our editorial is as strong as ever. It's as hard as ever to maintain the same level of readership we had. The social algorithms, the search engines just do not want to provide, and this is a common refrain, do not want to provide outbound links. They want to keep everybody on their platform. And so we have to keep working hard. We've been recently switched to Beehive as our email platform, and our continuing to emphasize email as a platform. We're in a decent place, but it's hard. It's still hard.
Audrey, tomorrow will be your first Orioles opening day.
Yeah, I'm going.
I figured you would have.
I appreciate all the orange here for it.
Orange is in your honor, but beyond the opening day at the baseball game, how do you balance the statewide mandate of the banner with covering Baltimore and now the metropolitan suburbs of Washington?
Thank you. That's a very good question, and I think for the banner, it's different than other places. As you mentioned, this is my 3rd newsroom to be editor-in-chief of, and every place has a different idea of how to balance those needs. And I think too often it means cutting resources in one place to add to somewhere else. And what is really remarkable, I think, about the story of the banners, as you know, our CEO, Bob Cohn, my boss, not to say he's not listening, I don't think so. I'm not just saying this because he's watching me. But hi, Bob. But you know, is a former journalist, and I think, you know, at first I didn't know if I was going to be okay with that. It's the first time I've worked for a CEO who's a former journalist. But what's really great about it is when we see opportunities to expand our reach and further our mission of making Maryland work for the people of Maryland, Bob knows that the way you have to do that is by giving people something that is a quality product, and that is actually investing in resources to go along with it. So yes, we're growing. We've added Montgomery County as one of our areas. It has a completely different landing page website or homepage, excuse me. It has its own newsroom. And we announced shortly after the Post announced their decision to cut metro coverage almost to nothing. We announced that we were going into Prince George's County. One of my future colleagues in that effort is here, Ashley Clark. You guys get that information before anyone except the newsroom. That's secret, except for all the thousands of people watching this. And we're just really excited to stand up yet another bureau that's really dedicated to laser in on that effort. And we think we can do it because we have places where we scale. We have the largest bureau in the State House. We have some of the best, the best statewide coverage. We have great environmental coverage that's statewide, and that's a benefit to the people in Montgomery County as well as Prince George's, as well as Baltimore City, as well as Baltimore County, as well. I'm going to stop now because I won't forget them all, but it benefits everybody.
Marcos, what does it mean to try to cover a 1 million person group in this community of so many others?
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. A lot of people don't know that every from 10 people residents in the metro area, one speaks Spanish at home. So it's definitely not a niche part. And you just talk about Montgomery County, we're talking about 50% of the population in Montgomery County feel more comfortable reading using Spanish. So the interesting thing is that when we try to cover a demographic like that, some people think that that you should lean in one type or vertical of coverage, but the needs of Latinos in the metro area are mostly similar from the overall general population. Of course, with the cultural nuance that requires, covering for immigrant population. 50% of those million people were born outside of the U.S. So it's super important to understand what is the challenges and the barriers, but also the optimism that they have in their heart. That is the optimism that every immigrant have when they come to this country. And right now, the challenge is twofold. First, the challenge as a business is that we're mainly B2B business, meaning that we monetize mainly advertising, like 40% is traditional advertising, but 60% we're talking about branded content, sponsorships, now events, and we also run a creative agency. So we're trying to diversify different revenue streams to be sustainable and also lock in the clients. And with that money, subsidize a great journalist that right now our community needs. And obviously I can talk about data. For example, our community is the most entrepreneurial community in the country, the demographic that creates more businesses across the board. So that's something that they need. But also with the current environment, I'm gonna stop talking about data and talk about the stories of people. I have a great friend that is just somebody that can represent what my community is experiencing right now. Is a veteran, a Marine veteran deployed in Iraq, a physician from Ecuador. His wife is a U.S. citizen from Ecuador also. She thinks she doesn't speak perfect English, probably like me. And she, every time that she goes out of her home, she goes with a passport in their pocket because she's afraid. So I am there said that I'm an editor-in-chief, but I also I'm the CEO. I'm not saying this because I like the title, but because I'm focused on business side also. And I'm not allowed to fail, at least for now. So that's the kind of sentiment that we experience in our company right now.
Too important to fail. That's a great motto. Christina, you're at an important point. Just raised a bunch of money. Tell us about the fundraising part of this, and particularly what does the brand, the 51st, mean to you in terms of what you want to stand for?
It is on. Okay.
Speak up.
Hello? Yeah. Okay, cool. So I've worked I've freelanced for like more than 24 local news outlets in the DC area, a few national outlets. I was a staffer at BCS for 2 years from 2015 to 2017. And around 2024, I was like looking for journalism jobs, but I was kind of on my way out, and I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do this anymore. Maybe I'll do like content writing or creative writing or something like that. I was just kind of exhausted with journalism, as a lot of journalists tend to do after working in the industry for 15 years. But then a former colleague reached out to me and she told me about the 51st, and it just sounded different. It sounded new, it sounded fresh, it was community oriented. I think the worker-led model really drew me in because we get to make the decisions. Well, right now it's kind of stressful for us because it's like, at first you could just be a journalist and do the journalism. Now you're doing the journalism, but also like the operations and like the collaborations and partnerships. And so it's like a lot, but we have so much control. We have so much power over like our culture and like what we produce that it's really like, invigorating. So I really enjoyed that about the 51st. And we're also really community centered. We launched a program called the Community Connector Program because there are a lot of communities in DC who don't feel heard or they feel misrepresented and they're not automatically going to like trust the 51st. So we make it a point to like go out in the community and speak to them and table and listen. So that's been really enjoyable about the 51st as well. And then the fundraising campaign, we just raised $375,000. Originally we were going to make one of our co-founders full-time. She's an editor, and then we were going to promote a freelancer to a full-time reporter because right now we only have one full-time reporter. But then when the post layoffs happened, we wanted to be more aggressive, so we were trying to hire another reporter and editor. So hopefully with that $375,000, we can hire 4 people in total over the next year.
And talk about the brand for a minute. What does the name the 51st mean to the staff as part of their ethos, how they think about these things?
I mean, a lot of people think we're like a advocacy organization for statehood, which we are not, but it's kind of funny because a lot of, we started publishing in October 2024, and then 2025, inauguration and everything, just like DC blew up. And so we ended up covering a lot of, federal government interference. And as I feel like that coverage like feeds into our name and our brand. So we have a mix of coverage about national politics and how it's affecting DC, but also DC local politics and also what makes DC, great and fun and a great place to live in. And then we also do a lot of service journalism. So breaking down policies and like demystifying just like how to live and interact and empower our readers to take action.
Let's talk about reader revenue for a minute if we can. Everybody has a different approach to it. Let's start with you, Audrey, because the banner is very aggressive about its strategy in terms of a paywall and having people pay. There are foundation people maybe in the room and certainly watching on the screen who wouldn't give you grants because of your insistence on the paywall. Talk about how you view the paywall and why you think it's important, at least for you all, to have it in such a central part of what you do.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I have so much to say about payroll. Well, let me start by saying that I worked for a privately held for-profit newspaper, and the absolute opposite, a public radio station. And I can tell you, from my point of view, like I don't care as long as we can fund as many journalism jobs as possible. Really, I mean, like, who cares, right? Except I will tell you that both of those business models on the edges, I think have real problems. I think it's a real problem when your budget is cut every year to make more profit. That is a problem for journalism. It is also a problem to not have any business imperative where your audience is giving you money. That is a wholly different problem that I might argue is even worse for journalism sometimes. And I think what is so great about the banner is I think of it like an arts organization. Like we might all agree that the symphony or the opera or nonprofit theater, these are all great things. We still buy tickets to them. The tickets don't fully cover the price of what it costs to put on that show, but it is a feedback loop, right? And we have introductory offers for $1. You can also get it for free through every library in areas where we have coverage. There are lots of places to get it. Also, our paywall is metered. We have free newsletters. There's lots of places to get a minimum level of coverage, but it is imperative to have local journalism at scale, by which I mean to have a place that has the biggest possible reach. This is so critical for like democracy, I think, because it's hard to shame a politician nowadays. I mean, like most of you are journalists, it is hard to shame some of these people. And I think the reason is that there aren't enough people consuming journalism. So I believe so fervently in the need for scale, and to support the journalism that we need to do that at scale, we have to have subscriber revenue. It also makes us much more stable. We have events, we have advertising, we have philanthropy, and we have direct support from our members. And it means that the banner is going to endure not just for the next 5 years, but I think for the next 100 years and more.
Any reaction to that and thoughts on having a paywall? Paul? Scott?
No, I think that there needs to be a diversity of different models and types out there. I think having a paywall, if that work, the main thing is that it works, right? That it's helping you employ journalists. And if your readers are telling you that they are willing to pay and you can make a business out of that, then I think that's great. On our hyper local, kind of more community oriented neck of the woods, I did not see that as an opportunity that would work for us. I do think that, like, as a mission, we want to try to get our reporting out to as many people as possible. And being free is a great way to do that, but I can't pretend that, like, we're free and we have the option to have a paywall. I mean, I guess we could have tried, but I didn't think it was going to work.
Marcos, thoughts on how you're going to get revenue from your readers?
At a local level, I prefer getting money from people that have a lot of money. And also here, they don't have other option. So I'm not gonna put them in a position they have to decide with their pockets if they read news or not. So for us, our local operations are a service that I need to get funded through other sources. At the national level, we can play with that idea because it's a decision for them if they want to hear our voice.
And how about membership and other ways to get the public to support what you do every day?
I think right now, maybe in a few years, but right now, my objective is reducing the friction for anybody consuming my news sources, not even asking for anything, just serving the best thing that they can read or consume every day.
Christina?
Our current model is that we're mostly funded by readers. We are, I think, around 70% of our revenue comes from members. And it kind of, the way it works is that we don't have a paywall because of paid members. That's kind of like what we say. And so we have like 18,000 subscribers right now, just having been in existence for only a year and a half. And about a quarter of them are paid members. So that's the bulk of our revenue. We have really diehard supporters. And one thing that we did through this crowdfunding campaign, which we didn't do in the other ones, was to try to raise money through memberships. So it's just not one-time donation, so that it's sustainable. So when we hire new reporters, we know that that money is going to be coming in, year after year. And then also we have, we apply for grants. I think we've gotten 3 grants so far in the past year. And then we have like an advertising program. So we want to diversify our income, but a lot of our revenue hopefully will remain like reader funded.
Please jump on each other and get into it. It's one if you don't mind. But I'll keep it moving by asking you all about product development and what it takes to be successful. The journalism is important. Audrey, you're very passionate about that and how much it matters in the world we live in. But it's also important that the things we're offering people are part of a set of services and a product that makes sense in their lives. Each of you talk a little bit about how you see the product. Christina, why don't you go first?
Yeah, the 51st sees journalism as a public service first, and we believe that, all people deserve to, well, DC residents deserve to live in an equitable and like fair and just community. And so like that's part of our ethos. And when we think about our product and our weekly newsletter, that's why we do a lot of service journalism and a lot of explainers, breaking down things like DC recently had super high like Pepco bills. So we had an explainer about like why that's happening and what you can do about it. Evergreen explainers like how to get an abortion in DC, or how to access paid family leave, what to do if you're arrested in DC, if you're protesting. So a lot of our product is to be like a tool and a resource for DC residents to be empowered to hold public officials accountable and just like live easier in the city.
Scott, what does it take beyond just covering the communities well to be a successful product in the world we live in?
Yeah, I mean, I think from day one, there was a thought that like, we wanted to be a place that people can go and that's going to be user friendly. If we are on the way, if we're online only, which we are, then we need to make the online presence as attractive of a place as we can make it. And granted, at the beginning, it was like a WordPress site that I launched myself, and it wasn't that great. But we've invested over the years in web development, web design, and we continue to do that, try to have a clean experience. We have programmatic advertising, which is about 20% of our revenue, but we don't they keep asking to put on like, video ad units, and I keep saying no. And, I think being willing to turn down some money to have a clean experience that your users like is worth it. The other thing that will speak on product design is we're always looking for ways to build more. There's a ton more I wish I could do. I wish I could we have 800 paid members for our 3 owned operated sites. I wish we could give them some sort of a ad light experience, maybe give them enhanced commenting capabilities. But the technology just isn't like, there's nothing off the shelf that does that. We've been very limited by the existence of technology that frankly we can afford. I will say, and I'm going to use a cuss word that a lot of people in this room won't like, AI is making a lot of things possible for us through vibe coding and just being able to figure out technical limitations. And it's really cool. It's not all the way there in terms of doing everything we want it to do, but I won't go on and talk about it too much, but suffice to say, I think it's opening up a lot of opportunities.
We will come back to that. Marcos, I didn't go into your background in detail, but you're a businessman first and foremost, and you spend your life in business developing products and marketing them. What does product development mean to you in terms of and how you see it as a product?
Yeah. When I joined the company in 2020, the company was like 80%, 85% print and 50% digital from the point of view of revenue. And we turned it around without losing top line. So that is something that we accomplished with some bets that were weird at the time. For example, I was always hesitant and even against programmatic advertising, for example, because I want to control my pricing and I want to control my direct relationship with the clients. In order to do that, we started selling them what we were like. For example, we focus on creating amazing content, audiovisual content, or writing content, or newsletters that clients want to be associated with. So we invested a lot in great cameras, production, and also we try not to complain about the algorithm. Whatever basis is game. So we do A/B testing. We create 5 pieces of content for every piece of content we do. It is a synergy when you think about creating amazing content. It's a synergy that then resonate with the audience, but also with clients, because clients want to look like you. And then if you lock in a client that want to look like you, you preserve the relationship with a high value, potentially high cost. The OpEx is high of delivering that kind of products, but you lock in a client for a while.
Audrey, how do you think about the banner, the Montgomery banner, the Baltimore banner as a product?
It's a good question because, as you all know, those counties are very distinctive from Baltimore region, and they're even very distinctive from themselves. And we've had a lot of meetings. I've been in a lot of meetings about brand strategy for these because it does pose a problem and an opportunity, I think, for us. And I think what's where we're really headed is thinking very, I think, smartly about personalization, which is a word that really, like 10 years ago, it made me recoil because, like, as a newspaper editor, I wanted to be able to prioritize what was important to people. But I think personalization doesn't have to get rid of prioritization or serendipity, but it can solve a problem like we have when we go into the DC facing suburbs with, you know, who don't want to know about what Brandon Scott Baltimore is necessarily doing. Or if you're an Orioles fan, you don't really care about the Nats, like that doesn't have to be on your baseball page. And we can save a lot of resources and a lot of time that is spent on that level of curation and product work that we can spend on journalism instead.
We're gonna have some time for audience questions, so save them up and there'll be a microphone wandering around in a minute or two. I'd like all of you to address the advertising meme or conventional wisdom that's out there. And that is that Google and Facebook have sucked all the advertising out of local markets, something I try to challenge all the time because I think there's plenty to do. And I assume you all are proving it every day and don't buy into that conventional wisdom that there's no local advertising. Pat, want to start?
Well, I very strongly agree. I think that scapegoating big tech is not the way forward. It's not gonna bring back, you know, the distribution monopoly that newspapers used to have. It's not gonna bring back the per cable subscriber fee that is dropping for local TV stations. I think you need to exist in the world as it exists. And you know, the fact of the matter is, for us, there is a significant amount of demand for advertising. It's not what it once was, but I also don't have the expenses of a print newspaper. So
what does it take? Is it feet on the street? Is it tools? Is it self-service? Do you have to know every restaurant in Arlington? What does it really take to make it work?
yeah, I mean, you need an audience. That's the product you're selling to advertisers is people. Now, you know, you can talk about the operations. You can talk about having, you know, an agency so that you improve the output or the results of the advertising you're putting out. But at the end of the day, it's eyeballs that you're selling against. So, you know, we've been very focused on making sure that we are bringing in readers on a regular basis, engaging them in the content, and that it doesn't sell itself. It's hard running a sales organization, selling ones and zeros on a local basis. But certainly it'd be a lot harder if we didn't have the audience and, you know, actual results to show advertising.
Christina, what does it take to sell an ad in DC?
Well, our director of operations, Eric, is a master at our ads. I feel like when he came from WMU, he already had quite a few relationships. And from what I see from Eric's work, it's just a lot of relationship building. Like we partner with a lot of like local theaters and like arts organizations. That's where a lot of our ad money comes from, and they trust us and they believe in us. And I think it's kind of a reciprocal relationship in that way.
Audrey, what does it take to sell an ad in Baltimore?
I mean, Baltimore is, first of all, y'all should come. It's so great, because the people of Baltimore love Baltimore so much, and I think really love the banner too, because of the history of how it was started and our efforts to reach into the community and be responsive to it. So we do really, we're sold out. We're almost sold out of direct ads. So I mean, I agree. It's about your audience. It's also about community connections and relationships.
But there is this conventional wisdom in the local news business that advertising is no longer there. Can't support big metropolitan daily newspapers because big tech.
It can't support big metropolitan news. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, whether we can bemoan it or not, but like, you know, I mean, if we have technology that we don't have toll takers on bridges anymore too. Like this is a sort of useless thing to complain about. I mean, I agree with Scott that we are where we are. They did take, you know, the dollars did shift. And I would go back to, that's why I think like getting more revenue from your readers is like the only way to support these big newsrooms. And I admire everybody who's in local news. Local news is hard, and it is where we are fighting, I think, for the soul of the American experiment. But we also need, as part of that, the large newsrooms, and the only way to do that is the diversified revenue streams. I feel like I've said this already.
Diversified revenue, really important. Marcos, what does it take to sell an ad?
Yeah. really given the client a good return of ad spend. And one of the first things that I did when I started running the business was investing in for us big campaign with our competitor. I want to test the performance of my ads in the platforms of the people that do news like me. And the return of ad spend was really bad. So if I'm a client, I want to see a good performance and a good output. I want to sell what I want to sell, and I want to make it in a way that is the most cost efficient way ever. And what I see is that a lot of media outlets and local media outlets mostly don't know how to do good advertising. And clients want to prefer to invest their money in, direct campaigns, Meta that is amazing for getting eyeballs. You don't need, a news outlet to get eyeballs. You need a news outlet to get trust. But also that trust has to be able to be monetized by the client. So we focus our attention in getting that really good product.
And briefly, you also have an agency within your organization.
Yes.
Tell us why that's such a good idea.
Well,
And what it does.
Yeah, I think two things. First, is a way to. First, you cannot do creative content for clients using our newsroom. You know that. So you need to create a different entity of people that know how to craft great messages, but are outside that the newsroom also. So the first thing is that we get a lot of information from the content that we create and the journalists that we create for our audience. So that data, gets funneled to the agency that can use in two ways. First, to create narrative, storytelling, and content that resonate with the audience that the client wants to target. And then the second is that we get a lot of first-party data. And for example, we created around 300 pieces of content every 2 weeks. Every piece of content get tagged and sub-tagged in different categories. And that allowed us to run campaigns that are larger than an audience through retargeting and lookalike audiences that can go at the level of a mother interested in insulin pricing. And we can target that at a zip code level, and the general agencies cannot do that because they don't create the content that we create. So that's an asset to sell.
Any questions from the crowd? We have a microphone if you'd like it.
That's.
Laura?
Great, thank you. Actually, my question is for you, Marcos. You started to talk about thinking through programmatic ads versus not selling programmatic ads, and I didn't totally follow where you landed, and I'm curious where you did land and what you found.
First, I never click in a banner. So it's like I don't believe in that business model in particular. I don't think that is something that generates engagement right now. Second, website is something that I think is gonna be is challenging right now with AI. But the most important thing is that programmatic puts you out of the relationship with the client, and also you don't control your pricing path. So it's a CPM that gets it's an arbitrage, and I don't want to be part of that. And that means that I lose revenue in that way because I'm not plugged in things. But what allowed me is that agencies don't have my outlets. Nobody has my outlets, just me. So they have to go with me if they want to sell my outlet.
You don't sell programmatic ads. Oh, okay.
I don't plug in any. We play with sometimes we have some inventory, but I just don't like to anybody think that my audience can, be worth $2 CPM.
Scott, thoughts on programmatic?
I mean, it's 20% of our revenue. We would be a smaller company without it. I will say that it wasn't until I want to say 2018, 2019 that we turned it on. And I had a lot of the same fears that it was going to drive out a bunch of our advertisers, or they weren't going to like, the layout that kind of prioritized the programmatic ads and spots. But in the end, we heard zero complaints, literally zero complaints about it. And the advertiser mix you see in programmatic is quite different. It's more national. You see some kind of regionally targeted stuff, but and also everybody sees something different with programmatic. So I I guess I'm just one frame of reference. But yeah, long story short, because we have the readership we have, it is substantial in terms of the amount of revenue. And, I think that anything that, to a point, as long as you're not, really degrading the user experience, if it is allowing you to do more local news coverage, then it's ultimately a good thing.
You're 16 years into this now, right? And
Yeah,
making money?
crazy. I mean, our revenue, I think I put this out there before. Our revenue last year and the year before that was about 1.5 million. And that's supporting a staff, full-time US based staff of 10, 7 journalists, 3 business side staff. We also have a operations team doing business side stuff in the Philippines. That's 4 people. And pays for our co-working space, get pays for our web hosting. We split off revenue to our publishing partners and support their operations. Am I taking home as much as my wife would like at the end of the day? I'm not. Do I think eventually it's going to be more lucrative? I do, but that's not the driving force. I mean, at this point, I'm kind of pot committed to the whole of news and the mission. I'm kind of stubborn by nature, and so I'm going to keep attacking it. But one thing I'll say is that I think it's still early innings, even though it's 16 years, which feels like a lot. I was in my mid-20s, and I'm now a 40-something-year-old dad living in a house in the suburbs. You look at like Washingtonian and city and regional magazines, and that their business model evolved over time. They now all have the special sections of the dentists, probably displaying their offices and whatnot, and that's like a big part of their revenue. But like that playbook didn't exist when magazines were invented. That was discovered over time, and I'm sure there was one city regional magazine that did this and figured that out, and then they all went to conferences and figured it out. I'm going to a couple conferences this year. I'm anxious to hear other people are figuring out. I think we will get there to the point where this is, not viewed as a one-off thing. This is viewed as a business that, is replicable. We're not quite there yet. It's still hard, and a lot of people are doing different things in different places.
Another question from the audience. A couple hands over here. Emma.
Quick question. So throughout the process of building the news infrastructure, what are like the most important things that you've learned? And also regarding AI, how have you used AI in your respective newsrooms?
Marcos, want to start?
First, I would say that at least since late 2023, that is when ChatGPT went mainstream. I started focusing that a lot on that the talent has to be always, of course, smart, but also generalist in a way. Even if you're a journalist, you have to know how to do a bunch of stuff and be super curious. So of course you have to be obsessed about your work, but also obsessed about a bunch of stuff around the company, not just the newsroom. And that's also applied to operations, to finance, to every part of the company. Every person has to have a sense of what does it mean to be a generalist when a specific set of skills, because that's the superpower that gives you AI, really. The second thing is that, of course, we start deploying AI through our operations, first the finance part, then the proposal part, then we start testing the distribution part. But right now, I would say since 6 months, and way more since Opus 4.6 for Anthropic, we are natively AI in our structure. So all our ops, finance, HR, proposal to the clients, also analytics, every piece of thing that is not actually journalism on the streets, lives within a framework and a structure of several plugins, code, on mainly Anthropic, but also Figma, Replit, and other stuff.
Audrey, want to talk about AI?
Sure. I mean, well, we have an AI policy, and the first part of it is that we will disclose it if we ever use it for journalistic purposes. the way we use it journalistically right now, we're building a bot that is basically a news tip. I mean, this is not, I think a lot of places are doing this, but it scrapes, it will eventually scrape social, Reddit, everything, news sources, in newsletters we can get our hands on, government sites, and uses, and we're training it to have news judgment so we can get tips, and try to figure out if there's something we're missing out there. We use it, for we have a fabulous data team, like one of the best of any local news operation in America, I would say. They use it a lot for code, for scraping things. What we don't use it for, and we have, you know, a CMS that has AI suggestions for headlines and for copy editing and things like that. It doesn't replace that human function, but it is suggestive. And like a lot of the times the headlines are better than anything. I suck at headlines. It's always better than what I can write. But we're not going to use it in place of a human going out and getting an answer and figuring out how to convey that to an audience. I just don't see us ever violating that trust with our audience.
Other questions from the audience?
I have a question for Audrey, actually, sorry. Say you use AI to make a headline. Is that something you disclose or is that not?
No, we don't. Not right now. You know, it's like we don't also use it. We don't disclose it when we use it as a spell checker either.
Right, exactly.
I think it's when it like materially is like creating something out of nothing that we would feel compelled to do that. We had I mean, to be honest with you, we had a freelancer, and a writer and a reader wrote to us and said, I can't believe you use AI to write your stories. And we were like, what are you talking about? And then we looked at the story and we're like, oh. And we called the freelancer and he said, yeah, I sure did. Everybody's using it now. And we were like, yo, bro, you can't do that. And we added a line to our freelance agreement. Like, you know, we're still a startup. There's lots of basic things that I'm like, oh gosh, we should have that. So we had an AI policy. We didn't, as a practice, send it to freelancers. Now we did. And we put a note at the bottom of that article that said this was written with the assistance of AI. After we published it, we refined our policies and we don't do that anymore. And the freelancer was cool with that. We're cool with it. And we move along and we live to fight another day.
Another question or two before we have to break. Please.
Yes, and this is for anyone who wants to answer. Curious of your thoughts about the continuity of your revenue models as we are going into looking at future generations who are not necessarily tied to getting their news from local sources, traditional local sources. I'm curious to know what you see that looking like.
I mean, I would say none of us are probably traditional local sources. I also think ever since I became a journalist, like now I'm hella old, but when I was in my 20s, people were saying the same thing, like kids don't want to read news anymore. And now those kids are like running for Congress and things. So they do. I think local news in particular has always had a barrier with a younger generation because you start to care about the zoning laws and your schools when you have kids and you are established in a community. And so I'm not too worried about it. And incidentally, the generations that are coming up after us are the most likely to pay for local news. The least likely is boomers, because we've given it to them for free for all their, so I think there's tremendous potential. And yes, we're also, you know, we have a content creator, video creator, and we do all of those things. But I think we worry a little too much about getting 20 somethings. I want the 35-year-olds. That's who my sweet spot is. And I know they are willing to pay for news, support it, and be engaged in their community.
Other thoughts in the panel about young people? Are we getting to them?
Well, I would say not about specifically young people, but I will say national outlets are gonna struggle unless they're, you know, the largest one in the country. Local news, even with, I know that the narrative and the reality is that is an industry that is struggling a lot, but with AI generated content, with a lot of changes in the way that we consume information, I'm super bullish on local news. Because you're gonna need people actually on the streets covering things. And maybe some of them are boring for young people, but some of them, they need to consume it anywhere. And it's not gonna be an AI doing that. It's not gonna be, I don't know, an AI face telling that thing. You actually have to go and meet people and shake hands and understand what it's like. So right now, more than ever, I'm bullish on local news. If everything that we see weird happening from the media space continue to be, and I'm sure it's going to continue to be. So
Another audience question. There were some other hands. Amy.
Folks, I'm Amy Brodbeck actually, and I'm with the Tiny News Collective, and I'm also a proud DC resident. And so one of the things that we've heard a lot about is the individual organizations, but I'm really interested in the like ecosystem level and that infrastructure level. And so I'm curious about how you all view the local ecosystem here, especially as you're thinking about it from a startup perspective.
Pat, want to start?
I mean, I like being with, fellow local news people, but
Not enough of it, right?
I can't say that we get a lot, get together that much. And, I kind of feel like a lone wolf at times, just doing my thing, just in total isolation. The Post, I mentioned this to someone the other day that, I've been doing this for 16 years. I've had 0 conversations with the Post. No one from the Post has ever reached out to be like, hey, let's have coffee. What are you doing? I'm sorry, outside of there's a tech, like ad tech thing, but beyond that, like that's surprising to me. And I think that it has a bigger impact than you might realize, that the dominant local paper of record was it just unengaged in the ecosystem. They closed their Montgomery County paper. It just was not something that was a priority under Bezos or even just before him. So I think it's underdeveloped, honestly, the ecosystem. I would love to see more. I don't know where, to what end. I couldn't tell you, but I think it's certainly lacks.
And there are places like Philadelphia and New Jersey where there are people working actively to bring the ecosystem together, and it's just not happened here yet.
I can say that the 51st, like, we're really about collaborating with other local news outlets. El Tiempo, we actually translated maybe like 5 or 6 of our explainers, and they republished them. We contributed to like the DC portion of like the opioid story that the Banner and the New York Times got the Pulitzer Prize for. We're about to host an election event with the Washington Informer. The Afro-American newspaper has republished some of our stories. We collaborate on a story with Street Sense. So like we've been talking to people like throughout the ecosystem, because we want to make it not a competition, but a collaboration. Like the more local journalism, the better is how we feel.
I can talk about a different kind of perspective in the ecosystem. I see a lot of structure, and I think is amazing, and it should continue to be a lot of structure to fund nonprofits, and I think that's necessary, and hopefully it's going to be more. I think there is a gap with for-profits, and also one thing that is a lot of funding into cash flow negative operation, thinking that the funding is going to provide innovation and future revenue streams. But you have a cash flow negative operation usually, and you get cash. Usually, you fill the gaps, and filling the gaps usually don't bring new innovation. So I would like to have some small focus on for-profits, because also that brings talent that are ambitious and want to build huge things and earn a lot of money. And usually that motivation brings talent that are interested in this kind of things. And the huge outlet that exists out there was funded potentially by people with that ambition. And I would love to that not be lost, because every time that I have a conversation in this infrastructure, people say to me like, have you think about turning nonprofit? And I get it, but I will hope to that not be the case.
Last question. We got to let people go. I think I'm going to ask the last question if I can. What are the 2 stories that are maybe 3 stories that are really going to matter in 26 and are going to make your year? make it different, make you bigger, make you better? What's gonna really matter? Scott?
We're talking like stories, like
Editorial
local stories that
little
we
story.
are published this year.
Yeah, what are you gonna be doing the rest of this year that's gonna really matter to the Virginia counties?
That is a tough one. I would ask you to come back to me, but I can come up with it.
Well, I mean, is it politics? Is it the Trump revolution? Is it the off-year election? Is it school board policy? What really matters to Virginians?
I mean, I think we will see what happens under a unified Democratic administration and legislature in Virginia. You know, does that result in changes that people in the state like, or does Virginia remain a swing state that, where the governor's mansion or whatever will swing back to the GOP? I think that's going to be really interesting to see, like the degree to which they can be effective and enact policies that like are popular in Virginia. I don't really opine much on Virginia politics, but I do think that, so I can't offer a prediction here, but I do think that that's kind of the Virginia story.
Well, you did a fair amount of opining there. Very good. What are the topics that are really going to matter that are going to make you this year in Baltimore?
Well, we have a huge election. That's going to be really important. And I think from my perspective, I just got here, but it seems very clear to me that Maryland is on a precipice economically for a lot of reasons. Baltimore's economy is on a precipice. The federal job cuts have walloped us, and just I think this morning, right, the census information became unembargoed. That almost all of our counties are losing population because of the lack of immigration, and I don't see how all of these don't come to a head in the next year, and it's going to affect everybody's life who lives here.
Marcos, what's going to really matter to you that's going to make your year editorially exciting?
My perspective is changing the victimhood narrative from our community, because right now we're focusing on putting them as a subject of our coverage, where the impact of their decision is going to shape the powerful. The impact of the decision of the Latino community is going to shape elections. It's going to shape the economy, the local economy, and it's going to shape a lot of things. And they're not going to be invisible, and we're going to make sure that they're not invisible through our coverage.
Great answer. Christina, what's going to really matter to the 51st this year?
I think two things that kind of intersect are the DC mayoral race that we're going to be covering really closely and hosting a forum around that and doing a lot of events and, talking to readers about that. And then affordability, which is like one of the main topics in the mayoral race. And we just launched an affordability series. So thinking about housing and childcare and debt and things of that nature, beyond like the rent is too damn high, but like, because we've been saying that for a decade, we've been saying that since I became a journalist, but like, what are the solutions and what are the nuances, and picking apart like why DC is so expensive.
You all have been a great audience. Thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. It's a local news day. Check out the website, localnewsday.org, and support your local news. Right. Thank you.
So